what's going on with like the bird's nest on top of my head. Well, that's going to last about 6 months, as it were. Hi, I'm Sock Marionette, doing business as bargain counter argument. I'm a middle-aged lady in a tiara, and this is Bargain Counter Argument After Hours. Bargain Counter Argument After Hours. This is when I talk about books that are a little steamier, a little spicier, a little darker, a little kinkier. And I don't do the voice the whole way through. Now, this Bargain Counter Argument After Hours is a little overdue because I was going to do this back when I did my video a day, Valentine's Day, it was a video a day lead up to Valentine's. I did a video a day for 2 weeks, starting February 1st to up to the 14th. I will link the playlist in the description below. And I'm going to add this to that playlist because I meant to do this during that, and I read almost all of these books during that time, but I didn't make the video because I had other videos I was making, and also I was, after doing a video a day for 2 weeks, I was a little burned out, and then some stuff happened, and I was kind of like, my head wasn't really fully in the game to do an after hours, but I'm back, babies. It's Bargain Counter Argument After Hours indeed. Now, what happened was, during the 2 weeks to Valentine's Day, leading up to Valentine's Day, I read a book from a different category romance line every day for those 2 weeks, and that's what I talk about in those videos. I also, as a bonus during those 2 weeks, I read some from the spicier lines, but I didn't really talk about those. I don't know if I mentioned what I was reading or not, because I knew I wanted to talk about them in an after hours video that obviously never happened. And also, if you're wondering what's going on with like the bird's nest on top of my head and everything, I just was at a 90s themed book club live stream, and I was like, oh, most of the books I read from those spicier lines were from the 90s, or at least enough of them to justify wearing this outfit since I already had everything on and everything. Okay, so yeah. So I read most of these, all but one of these I read as a bonus during that time, in addition to the other category romances I read. And I think we are looking at 5 books that I read during that time and one that I didn't. And I'm going to start with the one that I didn't read during that time. It was my 90s book, and I read it yesterday during my live stream. I'll put a link in the description if you want to see my live reaction. But usually when I read a category romance during my live stream, which is Midweek Motivation on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, here on Bargain Counter Argument, and it's not after hours. Usually when I do that, I kind of goof on the books and kind of just give spoilers and talk about what's going on in the books. This one I liked well enough, and it's also available on Kindle. And I was like, you know, people might actually want to read this. And I enjoyed it unironically, which I know that doesn't really fit in with the 90s vibe, but I actually really enjoyed it on its own terms. I thought it was a really, really pretty good book. And that is Break the Night by Anne Stewart. Not always available with this cover. There was a reissue with a different cover. And this, I am talking about it today because I would call this a dark romance. This is the Silhouette Shadows line. Silhouette Shadows was a short-lived line in the 90s, and it came at that time when a lot of publishers and filmmakers, television series, and so on were trying to copy the success of the X-Files, and they did that by adding a paranormal element to romantic suspense, and that was Silhouette Shadows. So you'd have like, sometimes you have a werewolf or a vampire or something. This one is kind of a reincarnation story, and I know on the reissue, the tagline is, what if the Jack the Ripper never died? And so we have a Jack the Ripper plot happening in 1992 Los Angeles, or 1993 Los Angeles. I really thought this was a really, really good book, and it was definitely a dark romance, and it knew it was a dark romance. So yeah, it's available on Kindle for $5. So if you buy 1 less gallon of gas in the next week or so, then you can afford it. Sure, you bet. Why not? And if it sounds intriguing to you, read it or look for it at the library, or I don't know, it might be available on Hoopla. I don't know. I have no idea. Didn't look into that. Anyway, I really like this a lot. And Okay, so that was definitely a 90s book. And also we have from the more explicitly, now again, this one's not sexually explicit, but there is violence and such like. So, somebody thinks he's Jack the Ripper and a serial killing. So it's very gritty, very dark. So that's why I'm talking about it here. Just thought I'd throw it in there. And I have this book is from, I believe, 1992. And this is from one of the more explicit lines, Silhouette Desire. This is by Maura Seeger, and it is called Princess McGee, as you can see. And I enjoyed this one. It is, she was no ice princess. As the daughter of Hollywood's king of horror, Lorelei McGee has been raised on ghosts and goblins. Now she was home, intent on restoring the family mansion to its former glory. And so she hires a local carpenter. But apparently her family ruined his family, at some point in the past. So he's out to get revenge. But they kind of end up actually having conversations about what his family went through and what her family was going through. So I would say it's not like you might think, oh, it's a category romance from the late 80s, early 90s, and somebody wants revenge and it's going to just be really, really gross. It actually ends up developing, and as you read it, you're like, oh yes, these people could have a solid relationship. The way they're interacting and talking about the past and their, his grievance with her family and so on. You're like, oh yeah, these people, I actually do buy that they will eventually as they work through the relationship, that it will actually be a solid relationship, as opposed to those books where you finish and you're like, oh, that's going to last about 6 months. And so that was from 1992. This one's from 1996. This is Harlequin Temptation. These were a little longer, and this is called, what is it called? Lovers and Strangers by Candace Schuler. It is part of a series called Bachelor Arms, and it's about these people who live in this sort of Los Angeles apartment complex that was built, like in the 20s or 30s. It's an older building, and it may or may not be haunted. And it's not quite to the level of Silhouette Shadows, but there is like a kind of quasi-paranormal element. And this particular book is about a cynical reporter and ladies' man, and he had a brother who committed suicide in a tragic and unexplained way. And so he goes to a bar called Flynn's, and there's a lady who lives at Bachelor Arms, and it's not really called Bachelor Arms, but she lives in that building, and she's a bartender. And as I'm reading that, I'm like, yeah, there really was more of a paranormal element to it than I realized. So triggers, because obviously the brother committed suicide and there was drug use involved. So, and he also, the reporter Jack, talks about his time in Vietnam. So it's it deals with real issues and real problems in a slightly paranormal way. It's not, I wouldn't say it's quite as dark romance as Break the Night by Anne Stewart, but it's up there, yeah. So I liked it. And here's one from 2002 that I was going through these books and I'm like, did I even read this? And according to Goodreads, I did. And then I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember it. It wasn't very memorable. It was okay. It wasn't like super offensive. It wasn't super, haha, look at these foolish people. It was just it was a book I read. And that was from the Harlequin Blaze line. And I believe this was from 2002. It is Wild and Willing by Joanne Rock. 2002. And this is about, she was wild. Mia Quinton had found the sensual adventure she'd been waiting for. Seth Chandler, a gorgeous corporate shark in pirate's clothing, is the perfect candidate for the sexy fling she has in mind. She'll act out a few naughty sessions and indulge her senses all before the sun goes down. It doesn't quite work out that way, and Seth refuses to settle for a brief fling. But he can't resist the too tempting Mia. It sounds a lot better than it is. It's not like actively bad. It's just very boring and unmemorable. It's just meh. It was a promising idea, but not. And then this is, jumping ahead quite a bit, this is for a Harlequin Desire, because we had Silhouette Desire in the 90s. And Silhouette and Harlequin Harlequin had bought Silhouette from Simon & Schuster, in the 1984, I think. And so Silhouette continued on its way, and they didn't really interfere too much with their editorial. However, at some point, Harlequin decided to phase out Silhouette entirely, and they took some of their lines for their own, like the silhouette intimate moments became Harlequin romantic suspense, I think. And they just took Desire pretty much wholesale. You can see that it's even got a similar cover vibe from 1992 to 2016. But it's a Harlequin Desire as opposed to a Silhouette Desire. I'm not sure exactly when it went from being Silhouette to being Harlequin, but you can see, like, they even, like, considering that it was, you know, what, 2016, this is like, you know, quite a bit of time later, it's remarkably consistent in style. This one is His Seduction Game Plan by Catherine Garbera, rather. I really liked this one, and it is, so the plot of this, seducing his enemy's daughter may be the best revenge. After being falsely accused of murder 10 years ago, pro football player turned CEO Hunter Carruthers is finally getting closer to the truth. Did his coach frame him? The key to securing the evidence Hunter needs, seducing his coach's daughter, Farron Gaynor. I like this one a lot. And the thing is that it makes it sound like he's being more underhanded than he really is. It's seducing his daughter. He actually goes to Farron and says, flat out, I think your dad did this thing. I think he framed me for murder. He had something to do with my being accused of murder, and I want to get the goods on him. And she has her own reasons for cooperating, and she does. So it's not like he pretends to like her in order to get the help he needs. He comes to her, he says, this is what I want. And they do end up doing some fake dating that turns into real dating as part of that scheme, but she's in on it. He's not putting one over on her. So I think there are a couple of things he doesn't tell her that she finds out later, but it's not like the main thrust of the relationship, as it were, is not, oh, he's pretending he likes her, he's trying to get her to fall for him, you know, in an underhanded way. What they're doing is kind of underhanded, but they're both working together on this. There is communication. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And His Seduction Game Plan, since he's a former football player, there are football metaphors throughout, which was kind of fun. And then another one, which I ended up reading, these books, it was a book that was not published in a physical format. It was from a line called Harlequin Dare, which they, for the most part, I think they did some promotional arcs or something like that were physically, that are physical books, but it was basically an ebook only line, and I got it through my local library. I believe it was Hoopla, and it was like they had 3 in 1 volume, well, 3 in 1 not volume because it's digital, but I checked 3 bundle, that's the word I'm looking for, 3 bundled together. I only read one because that was all I had time for. One of the other books, I read Inked by Anne Marsh, and I will put a picture of it here. And I don't remember, one of the other books in that bundle, in that 3-book bundle, was by Katie Robert. And I like her stuff, but I read Inked by Anne Marsh, and it is about a banker. She's an investment banker, and she gets involved with a tattoo artist who is also in a biker gang. And I really, really liked it. And I was talking to my buddy Sarah of Reading Category Romance about these categories, and she told me about Harlequin Dare because I didn't even know it existed. And she was like, well, it was kind of their reaction to 50 Shades of Grey, like being much more sexually explicit even than like the Desire lines or the Temptation lines. And I was like, oh. And she's like, I know. And then when I read it, the reason I was leery was that my experience with 50 Shades of Grey is just not so much the sexual ethics are off and the writing is bad, at least in my opinion. And so in Inked by Anne Marsh, it isn't questionable sexual ethics, and the writing's pretty good. And I enjoyed the relationship and how it developed. And I felt like there's a lot of sex in these books. They're very explicit, and there's a lot of it. And however, one of the things I liked about the various intimacy scenes in that book was that kind of the physical intimacy mirrored and showed and developed the emotional relationship. So it wasn't just like a bunch of sex scenes in search of a reason to exist. I think Anne Marsh did a really nice job of integrating the sex into the developing relationship. I really liked it a lot as well. So those are some of my recent after hours reads. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like, comment, share, subscribe, or don't. I am not the boss of you. And I hope you have a good night or day.